This story begins when a girl is giving something to the boy she likes. The boy tells us that this is how things should have been with his first love. Unfortunately for him, he knew that the girl's affection wasn't directed at him, but was meant for someone else. From that moment on, our protagonist knew he was just a convenient man for her, and it was from then that he began to change. We move to another moment, where we see a group of students talking about how the teacher's lecture was really boring, and one of them brags that he even used his phone throughout the entire class, even though he had already been scolded for it before. Another one of his friends reminds him that he has to go to work, and so he says goodbye to the group. The boy hurries off running, but as he says goodbye, he doesn't turn around in time and bumps into someone. This boy is none other than our protagonist, who apologizes for knocking him over, but says he was in the way, and we see that he has a frightening look on his face, which scares the boy who is leaving. One of the girls in the classroom mentions that he's already here, letting us know that he's famous at school. We finally learn his name. His name is Tsuyoshi, a boy whom people fear because of his menacing face. However, what makes him famous is that everyone thinks he's completely crazy and doesn't understand common sense. The protagonist had known for a long time that this is how the other students saw him. In his childhood, he attended a special elementary school, but due to various circumstances, he ended up going to a local school. Because of this, time went by and he never learned how to make friends, since he didn't fit in either in middle school or high school. Out of nowhere, someone mentions that things are tough for him. That's when we meet Hana, Tsuyoshi's childhood friend, who, complaining, warns him that next time he should come pick her up at the back door, since the way he came today was way too conspicuous. Tsuyoshi apologizes to her, since he didn't know she was watching. Even though Hana was annoyed that he came to see her like that, she still offers to let him make it up to her by accompanying her today through thick and thin. With that said, we see the two friends go out together, visiting a shop with cute things, going to the movies, and finally stopping at a restaurant to have something to eat. Despite all this, Tsuyoshi knows that she is just using him and that there is no way someone as kind as his friend would be interested in someone like him. Even so, he thinks that those things don't matter to him, not when he sees his friend showing him a cute stray kitten. While he asks what to do with the cat, Hana suggests they go eat some strawberries, but Tsuyoshi doesn't pay attention and just keeps admiring her beauty, since she is the only genuine connection he has with someone else and with whom he experiences the feeling of a normal, everyday school life. That's why, after dropping her off at her house, he reveals to us that she is a key element in his life. While Hana is lying in bed thinking about the day she had, the protagonist tells us how, thanks to her, even someone like him, who had become disillusioned with romantic relationships between men and women, began to feel hope of falling in love again, and if he wasn't mistaken, she felt something for him too. At night, Tsuyoshi stays up studying, or rather, thinking about his friend with a smile on his face, never ceasing to admit that he is attracted to Hana. The next day at school, the protagonist goes to Hana's classroom to pick her up, but then remembers that she asked him to come in through the back door next time, so he changes his course. Out of nowhere, he hears some of Hana's friends asking her if she's dating Tsuyoshi. They point out that they seem like an odd couple, since Hana is very cute while he's a bit boring, and they ask her if she doesn't like someone else. Hana starts to get nervous, so she reveals to them that the person she really likes is Midosuji, a boy from the basketball club, all while the protagonist is on the other side of the door listening to everything. To make matters worse, Hana insists that she only spends time with Tsuyoshi because he's her childhood friend and it's just convenient for her, but nothing more. Hearing all of this leaves the protagonist very saddened, and meanwhile, Hana's friends keep questioning her about whether she's really in love with Midosuji. Tsuyoshi enters the classroom and calls out to his friend, but only to warn her that they shouldn't go home together today. She immediately notices that something is wrong, but then she says goodbye to her friends and tries to clear things up with the protagonist. Hana's friends keep making fun of him, confident that he hasn't heard them, but even so, they stay quiet for now. Hana says goodbye to her friends and heads home with Tsuyoshi, who remains cold and silent. Hana gathers her courage and asks the protagonist if he heard the conversation she just had with her friends. Tsuyoshi thinks about telling her that he has very good hearing and that he heard every word they said. However, he knows this is a rather awkward matter, so he thinks it would be better to play dumb. He feels like he's the kind of man available for situations like Hana's, but even so, he has to do something, so he concludes that it's best if no one ever knows he once had feelings for her. At that moment, Tsuyoshi starts to remember all the times Hana told him she only went out with him because he was her childhood friend or because he was convenient for her, or something like that. However, every time she said that, he thought she didn't really mean it. Tsuyoshi thinks it's better to forget about all that, since the guy his friend likes is Midosuji. He doesn't understand what human kindness is, and because of this, he can't comprehend how he could have thought that Hana had feelings for him. However, this situation isn't new for Tsuyoshi, since he knows how to deal with it. He just needs to reset everything and start learning things from scratch again. Moments later, while they're walking down the street, Hana remembers when her friends asked her if she was dating the protagonist. That's when she finally gathers enough courage to get his attention and hand him a letter, catching him by surprise. Tsuyoshi realizes it's a love letter, and she, embarrassed, orders him to just take it already. Unfortunately for Hana, the protagonist remembers everything she told her friends and understands that she's only giving him the letter so he can deliver it to Midosuji. As he accepts it, Tsuyoshi doesn't understand what this pain in his heart is, since he was supposed to have gotten rid of his feelings for Hana. So he does it over and over again until he completely restores his emotions for her. That's when we realize that this is the scene from the beginning where the protagonist thought she should be his first love. Hana asks him what's wrong with such a serious look on his face, but while she is unaware of anything, Tsuyoshi reminds himself that this kindness isn't meant for him. As time goes by, Tsuyoshi can't help but feel something horrible inside him, a result of the truth that Hana revealed recently. That's when he realizes he's not made for a normal life. That's why he forces himself to completely reset his entire relationship with Hana, and we see him with a look completely devoid of any emotion. Hana notices that something strange is going on, and meanwhile, the protagonist finally starts to relax, because now he truly feels nothing for her. Even though he still keeps all the memories he shared with her, he has completely erased every affectionate feeling he had for Hana, turning her practically into a stranger to him. Returning to the main topic, Tsuyoshi asks if he should just deliver this letter as it is, but it doesn't bother him, since people ask him to do this all the time. Hana doesn't understand what he's talking about and starts to get scared. He assures her that even though he's clumsy when it comes to relationships, he'll do his best with this. Hana then becomes happy, thinking that Tsuyoshi accepted her letter, and he promises her that he'll carry out his task without fail. Just as they're about to say goodbye, Tsuyoshi swears to her that he'll deliver the letter to Midosuji, which leaves his friend confused, and she now tries to ask him what he just said. She tries to call out to him to stop him, but Tsuyoshi no longer hears her. He thinks that maybe she's just embarrassed, but that's no longer his concern, since now he doesn't have any feelings for her anymore, thanks to having restarted his relationship with Hana. Sometime later, we see that Tsuyoshi is attending classes as usual. He gave the letter to Midosuji, who gave the impression of being quite the ladies' man, and hoped that things would go well from now on, so he stopped going to Hana's house from that day forward. He did this so that strange rumors wouldn't spread about the two of them, since he had accepted his role as a convenient man for Hana. On his way to school, he ran into the stray cat from before and spent a little time with it while thinking about how complicated human relationships are. While everyone is chatting in class, Tsuyoshi is only thinking about wanting to see the cat again to give it something to eat, since he noticed it was quite hungry that time. At that moment, Hana arrives at the classroom and walks up to confront her friend, demanding to know why he gave her love letter to Midosuji. She realized it was exactly the same letter she had given him, and because of this, it was very difficult for her to reject Midosuji, showing the protagonist just how angry she is with him. However, he is surprised by her reaction. Hana starts crying out of anger, questioning Tsuyoshi about why he didn't come to pick her up at her house or why she can't contact him anymore, on the verge of tears. For his part, the protagonist doesn't understand what's going on, unable to grasp the situation. That's when Tsuyoshi tells her that he overheard her making fun of him with her friends and how she actually liked Midosuji. Hana then realizes what really happened. Tsuyoshi explains that he thought giving the letter to Midosuji was the right thing to do, but then Hana gets even more upset, insisting that she never said any of that, or at least she didn't mean it. She starts crying, lamenting that she had thought they were finally dating. Tsuyoshi explains that it would have been better if Hana had gotten together with someone more suitable for her instead of him. While Hana cries, the protagonist realizes that he must act as soon as possible, because if he doesn't, strange rumors could start circulating around the school. In response, he apologizes to Hana with a deep bow, swearing that he will never make the same mistake again and will never approach her again. She offers to let him make it up to her by walking home together, but this time, the protagonist refuses, or rather treats it as something unimportant, since he doesn't want to cause more problems due to his lack of common sense, so he decides to stop seeing her from now on. Hana realizes that this isn't the first time something like this has happened to the protagonist, and she starts to become desperate because of it. As we see several girls, possibly connected to the protagonist, he tells us that the relationship he once had with Hana can never be the same again, lamenting that human relationships are certainly complicated. We are taken to one of the protagonist's memories, when he was entering middle school with Hana and she had scolded him for not wearing the appropriate clothes for the occasion. Back then, she had to keep a close eye on him so he wouldn't get into trouble due to his lack of common sense, something the protagonist was always grateful for. Little by little, day by day, they started to grow closer, doing more than just traveling to and from school together. They would also talk about anything or go out for walks together. All of that continued in a very sweet way until the fateful day we all know, when Tsuyoshi reset all his feelings for her. On a new day after all this, we see our protagonist, who has just received a test result. Although he passed, he didn't do as well as he had hoped. At the same time, everyone complains about their own results. That is, until out of nowhere, someone catches Tsuyoshi's attention. This girl is none other than Michiba, the class president. She approaches him with a smile, asking how he did on the exams, thinking he doesn't take it seriously when she sees his results. Tsuyoshi insists that he has been taking it seriously, and that's why it's easy for him to pass. Unfortunately, it seems that his efforts still aren't enough. She insists that's a lie, since she knows how smart he can be. Tsuyoshi tells us that she's the only person in the class who talks to him, all because she once asked him something in the library. We move to that moment while she continues teaching the protagonist. That day, he approached her, catching her by surprise, asking what she was doing, without realizing the intense look she had at that moment. This startled her a little, but Tsuyoshi, noticing what had happened, apologized and then took her notebook and began to look through it. It was thanks to this that she discovered how smart he was. Tsuyoshi said that he always needed time to practice exercises like these, especially the more difficult high school level math problems. Michiba was surprised by this and then asked him who he was, discovering that he was the famous Tsuyoshi. When she found out he was good at math, she praised and congratulated him. But our protagonist always remained humble, assuring her that he was just at a pretty average level. After a while, she was able to see how he solved several of her problems easily, leaving her very impressed. Full of excitement, she asked him if he wanted to start meeting up to study in the library, and since he always went anyway, he agreed. Out of excitement, she asked him to teach her the next day and started calling him teacher, something that took Tsuyoshi very much by surprise. He tried to explain that he wasn't a teacher, but Michiba corrected herself and asked him to teach her more from now on whenever she needed it. Back in the present, although it's normal for the protagonist that they talk in the library, it's very unusual for her to come looking for him to chat in the classroom. Michiba knows how smart he is, but she also knows that he leaves his answers blank on purpose and doesn't understand why he does it. Tsuyoshi remains silent at the question. Michiba notices that he's distracted, so she calls his attention once again. This time, she suggests that he go to karaoke with her and some classmates, since the more people there are, the more fun it will be, and it could be good for someone who's always alone like him. When Tsuyoshi imagines karaoke, the first thing that comes to his mind is an older man singing, trying to relive the energy of his youth. Tsuyoshi promises her that he'll consider it, but to Michiba, he sounds like an old man for taking it so seriously. Putting that aside, she asks him with interest if he broke up with Hana. The protagonist quickly clarifies that nothing bad happened between them and that they never dated in the first place, since their relationship is and always has been strictly that of childhood friends. Hearing this catches Michiba's attention and she immediately jokes by asking if, taking advantage of the situation, she can become a candidate to be Tsuyoshi's girlfriend. Happy about this, she again suggests that they go to karaoke together, but the protagonist refuses, thinking it would be best if he didn't go. She asks him if it's because he doesn't want to, but he explains that it's not like that, he just doesn't want to bother her. In reality, Tsuyoshi doesn't want people to see Michiba because he knows the reputation she has in class, and if they're seen together, strange rumors about her could start to spread. What he doesn't want is for his way of being to harm her. In response, Michiba thinks his concern is about going alone, so she reminds him that some classmates will be there to keep them company, and even threatens that if he doesn't go, she won't talk to him again. Not knowing how to dodge the invitation, Tsuyoshi reveals that he has never been to karaoke before, so he's a bit nervous about it. She gets up to leave and advises him to just relax. After all, he might even become good friends with the other kids in the class, she says, leaving with the promise to let him know after school where to go. At the end of the school day, Tsuyoshi feels really happy that someone has finally invited him out, and as he checks his phone for the address, he's glad that he'll finally be able to make real friends. Seeing Michiba's message makes him feel very happy and hopeful. When the moment of truth arrives, he waits for the others at the agreed place, wearing the clothes Hana had picked out for him for casual outings. As he checks to make sure everything is okay, Tsuyoshi can't help but remember when she scolded him for going out with her in his school uniform, and that's why he had to get something better and more appropriate for the occasion. The sad thing is that, in reality, Hana always thought he looked good no matter what he wore, but Tsuyoshi was never really able to understand that. When Tsuyoshi remembers those moments, he doesn't really know what he feels, but now that he's gone out to karaoke with Michiba, he has the sense that he can be happy once again, and he starts heading to the place since no one else has shown up. As he does, he attracts the attention of some women who whisper to each other when they see him. Tsuyoshi notices this, but he doesn't understand why they stop to look at him like that, since today he's not wearing his school uniform and he didn't dress that strangely, or at least that's what he thinks. The protagonist arrives at the karaoke place, where no one else has shown up yet and quite a bit of time has already passed. He stands there waiting for them, but he can barely contain his excitement. Sadly for him, quite a bit of time passes and no one shows up. This makes him wonder if he misread the time or went to the wrong place, so he starts to leave, thinking he'll apologize to Michiba the next day. Just before he leaves, his phone rings. It's a call from Michiba, and when he answers, she scolds him for going to the wrong place and asks him to hurry, since everyone is waiting for him at the right location. After hearing this, Tsuyoshi is left in shock and then starts running toward the correct place, wondering what just happened, whether Michiba played a prank on him, or if he really was at the wrong spot. After a while, he finally arrives at the karaoke room where everyone is supposed to be, and when he enters, he apologizes for being late. To his surprise, a guy with a thug-like face asks him what he's doing there, since he doesn't know him. Tsuyoshi is left in shock at the scene in front of him. A group of bullies are hanging out in the karaoke room, and as soon as they see him, they demand that he leave or ask why he's staring at them so much. The guys point out that he went to the wrong place, but the protagonist doesn't understand what's going on, since this time, he clearly heard Michiba's directions. Out of nowhere, the gang leader grabs him firmly by the shoulder and demands that, as an apology, he go and buy them drinks. The guy claims that his friend couldn't decide which song to sing because he was so surprised to see him, and this is the least he can do to make up for his mistake. The others mock him as they watch how he intimidates the protagonist, who, with no other choice, agrees to buy them the drinks. That way, they let him go, and shortly after, we see Tsuyoshi at the vending machine. Tsuyoshi stands there staring at it, unsure of what to buy for the guys, and while he's thinking, he sees a couple of girls who mention how much they like their drinks, which makes him think those might be good options. Shortly after, Tsuyoshi returns to the room with the drinks for the guys. They thank him for the gesture and Tsuyoshi once again properly apologizes for the trouble. The group laughs happily at the protagonist's gesture, and before he leaves, they give him an ordinary piece of candy as a peace offering. The protagonist then leaves, somewhat surprised by the boy's attitude, thinking that after this, maybe he could feel the same as they do if he goes to karaoke with friends. And he also wants to know what that feels like. When he leaves the place, he hears a group of kids whispering about him and how he's been waiting for them for a while like a fool. Among them, Michiba is laughing cruelly at him about how they tricked him into running around however they wanted, mocking how he's such a nervous boy that he didn't know what to do. She's not the only one laughing. The people with her also mock him when they see how much the protagonist prepared for this occasion, pointing out how excited he was and how he really thought they wanted to invite him to karaoke. The kids make fun of how Tsuyoshi was willing to wait for more than 2 hours for them to arrive, and then laugh at how he tried to look good in casual clothes. Michiba calms everyone down and assures them that there's nothing to worry about, since the protagonist is in love with her anyway. The others praise her, thinking it's only natural given how popular Michiba is. For his part, Tsuyoshi can only sense bad intentions from them. They might think this is just a joke, but for him, it means much more than that. It is then that he starts to remember all the moments he spent with Michiba, studying together and teaching her how to do the exercises, and especially the time when she said they had become friends. Tsuyoshi thought that back then, Michiba was truly happy and cared about him. Unfortunately, it turns out that in reality, she only saw him as a convenient guy whom she used to help her study. The protagonist once again feels how deeply he has been hurt and, not wanting to go through that again, decides that the best thing is to reset everything. As he watches the group laughing, Tsuyoshi convinces himself that if he resets or forgets everything he feels, then it won't matter to him if those people had bad intentions toward him. And more importantly, if he doesn't remember or doesn't consider one of his best friends to be close, then it won't hurt him either. He doesn't want to suffer again like he did with Hana, so the best thing is to pretend it never happened and forget everything. Just like that time, Tsuyoshi wonders how many times he has done this and convinces himself that he will simply destroy everything that torments him right now, until he empties his heart and erases all the bad things inside him. After a moment, it seems like something breaks inside him, and that's when Michiba calls him by his nickname, Master. She approaches and notices that what they did affected him a little. She assures him that it was just a little joke and that he has nothing to worry about, offering to go to another karaoke together. She also asks him that, if he has time, he could teach them as well, since when they found out their grades had improved after studying with Tsuyoshi, they wanted to join in. That's when the group invites him to spend time together at a karaoke, but the protagonist doesn't say anything. When he finally decides to speak, we see the same empty look in his eyes that he had with Hana, and he apologizes because now all he wants is to go home. This reaction catches Michiba off guard, and she asks him why he wants to go home right now. She starts to notice that he's angry and keeps insisting that he should teach her friends as well. But Tsuyoshi insists that he doesn't want to have anything to do with Michiba. She starts to get more scared, explaining to him that everyone gathered to meet him, and keeps asking him to stay. Tsuyoshi realizes that maybe it's a bit insensitive to leave without thinking about them, so he apologizes and says he'll go home first, while looking at Michiba with eyes full of pure contempt. She steps in and, realizing she went too far with the joke, apologizes to him. But Tsuyoshi assures her there's nothing to forgive, since after all, he doesn't feel anything for her. Michiba then, desperate, claims that he likes her and that's why he helps her study. However, the protagonist apologizes and again points out to her that it doesn't matter anymore because, in any case, he no longer feels anything for her, neither good nor bad, which leaves Michiba frozen. She starts to get genuinely scared and asks her teacher why his face looks so frightening. Tsuyoshi then seriously asks her to stop calling him that, and we see something break in Michiba's heart, whom the protagonist leaves behind completely devastated. As he walks down the street, he mentions to himself that even though she puts on a pitiful expression, at this point he no longer feels anything for her. And as he leaves, he takes out the candy given to him by the gang of delinquents, relieved that his heart no longer hurts, since he doesn't have any feelings for Michiba anymore. In the end, the protagonist returns home, disappointed that he thought he could have normal feelings for someone else, but in the end, he had to reset them again in order to keep living like a normal young man. Some time later, we see Tsuyoshi running down the street to exercise. Since the day the karaoke incident happened, Michiba hasn't greeted him again. In fact, she didn't even show up again at their study sessions in the library. The protagonist has now realized that she was only using him to study, while he was excited at the thought of finally making a real friend, someone he could have feelings for. Unfortunately, just like Hana, he ended up being terribly hurt by someone he trusted. Now that he has reset his feelings again, he feels confident that he can do things better, but he still believes that having reset his heart twice makes him truly weak. As he runs, he passes a girl, looking really cool as he does so. As he runs, he can't help but think about Hana and Michiba, because even though he has erased all his feelings for them, the memories of their time together still linger in his mind, making his current life feel empty. While he's running, someone calls out to him from behind. It's the girl from before, running and barely able to keep up with him, asking him to slow down a bit. After a while, the two of them are resting in a park where the girl drinks some water to recover, feeling relieved that they were close to the place. After this, Tsuyoshi asks her who she is, and realizing she hadn't introduced herself, the girl says her name is Mimi and that she's in the track and field club. She points out that the uniform he's wearing is a different color from hers, which means they're in different years. Then she asks him, interested, which sports club he's in, but when she hears that he's not in any, Mimi is very surprised and thinks he's lying. Tsuyoshi insists that he's telling the truth, but Mimi persists, because after seeing him run so fast, it's obvious he has a lot of talent for sports, so he must be in some club. The protagonist doesn't understand where all this excitement is coming from, since he's not lying to her. That's when Mimi asks him if he would run with her again, if he doesn't mind, and asks him to be like her track coach. When the protagonist hears this, he has bad memories with Michiba, since this is just like when she asked him the same thing for her studies. Back then, she also asked him to teach her, but in the end, he ended up resetting his feelings for her. Before he can turn her down, Mimi explains that she wants to get into a good school through a sports recommendation. That's why she tries so hard, and that's also why she wants Tsuyoshi to train her, because she's never seen anyone run as fast as he does. Mimi then asks him to please teach her his secret to running like that, to which the protagonist sighs, not knowing what to say. But Mimi insists, giving him puppy dog eyes, almost on the verge of tears. In the end, Tsuyoshi agrees to train her, but only if it's in the morning, since that's when he doesn't have anything important to do. This makes Mimi very happy, so they start right away. The first thing the protagonist explains to her is that when she runs, she should pay special attention to her posture, but she doesn't understand what the correct posture is. Tsuyoshi starts off with a run, showing her that the correct way to move is with a straight back, slightly leaning forward, and stepping firmly, using the energy from each step to move forward. Unfortunately, she gets tired quickly, so they're forced to stop at a bench. During that time, Tsuyoshi gives her a bottle so she can recover and points out that her posture is a bit hunched. In addition to this, the protagonist points out that they need to consider which muscles they want to work on so that she can become more resistant and faster. But Mimi doesn't really understand much about the subject. Even so, she doesn't plan to give up, and with determination in her eyes, she asks the protagonist to give the exercises a concrete goal to keep her motivated. He agrees to this and shows her how he moves to demonstrate the difference between doing it right and doing it wrong. Finally, when Mimi changes her posture, she starts running faster and feels the progress from the exercises she did. Thanks to this, she sets a new record on the stopwatch and feels very happy, since the results of her training with the protagonist were immediate. In the end, she realizes that the whole time she was only focusing on running and not on actually being fast. Tsuyoshi explains to her that there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a good motivation, and that if she just wants to keep running, she can do so while also focusing on being fast. This makes Mimi even happier, and she vows to keep running and training to become better every day. Putting that aside, Tsuyoshi tells her that if they don't hurry, both of them will be late for school. In response, Mimi hurries off, saying goodbye to her new friend, and they agree to keep running and practicing together the next day. While this is happening, the protagonist feels a bit of happiness inside him. Days go by, and he starts running every morning with his new friend. Both of them look very happy and make progress each time they meet. Eventually, one day, Mimi was able to run so fast that for a moment the protagonist thought she was a different person and even congratulated her for making so much progress in such a short time. She tells him that after practicing so much, she was finally chosen to be part of the main sports club, which makes her very happy, and she thanks her coach for this. Tsuyoshi insists that he had nothing to do with it, but she already expected this response from him. Even so, she wants to thank him, since it was because of him that she was able to improve so much, so she gives him a pair of leather sneakers as a gift. She had heard that he always went to school wearing some really ugly sneakers, so she bought these for him as a thank you for training her these past days. Tsuyoshi isn't sure whether to accept the shoes, since they look quite expensive. Nevertheless, Mimi insists, since she also wants to see her coach happy. She says she put a lot of effort into choosing these shoes purely and exclusively so that Tsuyoshi would be happy to have them, and she would be very glad as well if he accepted the gift. The protagonist, seeing Mimi's sweet smile, can't do anything but simply accept the shoes, and even goes to school that very day wearing them. At the entrance, she calls out to him, greeting him very happily. Tsuyoshi notices that she seems more excited than usual, but it's obvious, since the competitions are approaching. The protagonist thinks he wants to train a bit more before everything starts, so he warns her not to push herself, as it could be harmful. Mimi assures him that's not it, and instead, she wants to talk to him about something. She asks him to come see her at her competition, because if he does, she'll be very happy. But Tsuyoshi feels uncomfortable with the atmosphere, though at least he assures her that he'll try to attend the event. This makes Mimi a little sad, and she insists that he come to see her. Tsuyoshi thinks that she might actually win the championship at the competition. After all, he's seen how much she's worked and improved these past days. Just at that moment, someone calls out to her, and we see that it's Shimizu, a boy from the track and field club, who urges her to start training as soon as possible. When she turns to look at him, Mimi blushes and gets nervous, promising that she was just about to join the club. Meanwhile, the protagonist recognizes the boy as someone from the neighboring class. Tsuyoshi realizes instantly, thanks to Mimi's expression, that she's in love with him, so he decides to act like a gentleman and leave before he makes the happy couple uncomfortable. That is, until Shimizu calls out to him. He looks at him in a hostile way, and even though it's the first time they've met, he can't hold back what's on his mind, and questions him about why he hurt Hana, insisting that he can't forgive him for that, while the protagonist looks at him with total surprise on his face. The protagonist can't understand what he's talking about, since they've just met and he's confronting him about such a sensitive topic. Furthermore, he also doesn't understand why he's reacting this way over Hana's problem. But while Tsuyoshi tries to figure out what's going on, Shimizu keeps scolding him, insisting that he'll never forgive him for what he did. Tsuyoshi notices that he's not just angry, it seems like he deeply hates him, and that's understandable, since Shimizu saw how Hana became a sad person because of what the protagonist did to her. Even so, Tsuyoshi still doesn't understand where all of this is coming from. That's when Shimizu questions him about what he's doing with a member of his club, referring to Mimi, and directly asks her what her relationship with the protagonist is. While Tsuyoshi tries to make sense of what's happening, Mimi starts to get a little scared and asks Shimizu if he's in love with Hana. At first, he doesn't react. But then he blushes and insists that he doesn't feel anything for that girl, thinking that Mimi is making fun of him. Putting that aside, he goes back to questioning what kind of relationship she has with Tsuyoshi, reproaching him for going around making an innocent girl cry. Mimi starts to get disturbed by all this, and while Tsuyoshi complains to Shimizu for being rude and yelling at him right after meeting, this only makes Shimizu even angrier, as Mimi becomes frightened by the rumors she's starting to believe about the protagonist. However, she tries to calm things down and asks Shimizu to go to the club to train. But then the crowd starts to gather around, questioning whether she has some kind of relationship with the protagonist. But she denies all of this. Shimizu warns her that if anyone wanted to be friends with someone like the protagonist, he would immediately feel disgusted by that person, which frightens her a lot and forces her to make a difficult decision. After thinking about it for a moment, she claims that she doesn't know Tsuyoshi at all and that he just came to see her to chat for a bit. Tsuyoshi, while watching this, begins to understand why she denies their relationship. After all, she is a first-year student and is in the sports club with Shimizu, the ace of the team. Because of this, he understands that the situation between them is very complicated, so it's best to cut everything off from the start to avoid problems in the future. Even so, he thinks that he should restrain himself, and that these are not Mimi's true feelings. To his misfortune, she claims that during her morning training sessions, he would always follow her, which made her feel a bit scared. Shimizu suspects that it might be harassment and suggests calling the police, but Mimi downplays the situation, saying that since nothing happened, there's nothing to worry about. After this, she asks Shimizu to leave because they have to train and need to focus on the competition in order to win, leaving the protagonist heartbroken once again. Tsuyoshi feels as if every word from her hurts him deeply, but he hopes that this is just an act to calm things down for now, and he waits to see what she really thinks. Mimi finally turns to look at him, telling him that she had no idea Shimizu hated him, and says that he should have told her that before. Then she complains that if she hadn't been able to fix things now, her reputation could have hit rock bottom, which impresses Tsuyoshi when he hears all this. Moreover, Mimi doesn't stop there, and she scolds him for making a girl cry. With a ruthless look, she asks him to please not come near her anymore. Tsuyoshi is left speechless by this, recalling when she used to smile at him cheerfully, asking him to train her. This leaves him completely devastated, and Shimizu watches from nearby. He looks at the shoes she gave him, the ones he worked so hard to get, which immediately brings him back to one of his happiest memories with her. Back when he thought he could have hope in someone once again, but now he only feels an immense pain in his heart. The protagonist starts to realize that things always go wrong for him. First it was with Hana, then with Michiba, and now with Mimi. He has tried to trust them each time, but they have always let him down and hurt him. Because of this, he no longer wants to feel heartbreak or pain over a relationship he doesn't understand. That's why, from now on, he swears he will never trust anyone again and understands that if he does, he will be the one who gets hurt. Therefore, he is going to reset the feelings he has for Mimi, whom he once considered like his own sister. After a moment of concentration, he is finally able to look at the shoes she gave him without feeling hurt. In fact, now that he has erased his feelings for her, he can look her straight in the eye calmly, just as if she were a stranger. Before saying goodbye, Tsuyoshi points out to Mimi one last time the flaws in her running posture, but he understands that she doesn't want them to see each other again, so he only warns her to be careful with her old injury, while she asks him not to talk about it out loud, since Shimizu might overhear them. After this, the protagonist ends the conversation by saying that he doesn't have to interact with her ever again either, showing his usual cold and emotionless expression. She complains again and denies ever having received any instructions from him, pretending to be annoyed. This makes Shimizu even angrier, and she confronts the protagonist again, telling him to leave, but he insists that he was only giving her some running tips. But Shimizu doesn't calm down even with this explanation. He complains again, claiming that Mimi improved thanks to his training, and she, pretending to know nothing, sides with Shimizu. The protagonist realizes that no matter what he says, they will deny it, so it's best to leave and let things be. However, when he tries to leave, Shimizu tries to stop him, but isn't fast enough. This annoys him, as he thinks Tsuyoshi is underestimating him, and right at that moment, Tsuyoshi starts running using his unique running technique, which surprises Shimizu. He can't believe that every one of his limbs is being used so efficiently, but he refuses to lose to someone wearing leather shoes, so he sets off to chase after him, leaving Mimi alone. As the two of them run, people around start to watch, impressed to see someone running faster than Shimizu, even while wearing leather shoes, and in the end, it's clear that the protagonist is much faster than the best member of the track club. In the end, Shimizu ends up crying out of frustration, unable to believe that someone else could beat him, even without being prepared. And as he watches Tsuyoshi walk away, all he can do is collapse to the ground from exhaustion. At the same time, the protagonist keeps running as if he wants to escape the pain caused by the two people he just left behind. Then he thinks that maybe if he resets his feelings for Hana, Shimizu might not hate him, and he could avoid trouble. Tsuyoshi begins to reflect, wondering if feelings are formed from his relationships with other people. Unfortunately, it was precisely this that ended up breaking his bond with Mimi, especially after realizing that she only used him, just like everyone else. In the end, his heart is now empty, because he trusted 3 times and was cruelly betrayed 3 times. On more than one occasion, Tsuyoshi thought about getting rid of the shoes that Mimi gave him, considering giving them to someone else, but maybe that would be a waste. We move to one of the protagonist's memories, where we see several pills, and he mentions that in elementary school, food was just a formality, but it was important that it tasted good. However, back then, and even now, he never felt that just regular food was enough, so he started adding supplements. It was only at 17, in high school, that he learned what friends were. Moreover, in these past few days, he realized that eating with friends usually makes things taste better, and he feels happier than when he eats alone. Unfortunately for him, all those feelings he once had are now gone. Now we move on to the break between classes, where some girls are happily eating together, while Michiba, who is sitting next to them, keeps glancing sideways at the protagonist, who is eating alone and silently at his desk. Her friends notice that something is off with Michiba and try to ask her if she's feeling unwell. She tries to pretend she's fine with a smile, but they've noticed that lately she's been somewhat disconnected and down, and she starts thinking of an answer. But before she can say it, Hana appears in the classroom asking for Tsuyoshi. The protagonist turns to look at her intently, fixing her with a sharp gaze like that of a knife or a snake about to strike. When everyone sees her, they start whispering. Since, thanks to the rumors, they know she's the girl Tsuyoshi made cry, and as a result, now they make him out to be the villain when in reality he's the only victim. He realizes that things are getting uncomfortable, so he tries to leave before causing any trouble for his former best friend. But Hana grabs him, asking him to wait, and asks if he no longer studies with Michiba, trying to find an opportunity to become his friend again, and maybe even his girlfriend. After all, people are already gossiping about it, and if he doesn't have any plans, she wants them to go out together like in the old days. All the while, Michiba listens closely, waiting for any moment to jump into the conversation. Not missing the opportunity, she stands up and throws it in her face that she's the girl who was rejected by her teacher right in the middle of class, pointing out that people even call her a taboo or something like that. She says Hana is so toxic that no one should be unlucky enough to even see her, which surprises Hana. Then she brags that she's going to study together with Tsuyoshi, knowing just how much Hana hates hearing that someone took her place. She immediately recognizes Michiba as the girl who made fun of her best friend and warns her that she has no intention of forgiving someone like her, someone who just plays with other people's feelings as if it were nothing. Michiba gets nervous and claims that it was just a joke, then defends herself by telling Hana that she was the one who went and created a romantic drama with the protagonist, drawing even more attention from the whole class. And to rub even more salt in the wound, she reminds her that she wasn't honest about her feelings and mentioned another boy she didn't even like, completely disregarding the person who not only truly liked her, but had also been with her since they were kids and with whom she had shared many good times. Hearing this leaves Hana frozen and hurt, who starts to get aggressive and ends up fighting with Michiba, trying to reaffirm her position as the protagonist's best friend, and the only one who can make him happy. But Michiba isn't planning to back down either. While they're yelling at each other, one of the girls present warns them that during the fight, the protagonist already left, leaving them completely alone, since while they were busy arguing about whose fault it was, their goal slipped right through their fingers. The protagonist walks through the hallways in search of a quieter place, thinking that even though his former friends were talking about him, he feels like their argument doesn't involve him at all, since after all, emotionally, to him, they're just a couple of strangers he shouldn't be involved with at all. Upon thinking things through, he realizes that nothing has changed since he was in high school, since back then he was just as awkward as he is now, and as a result, it was always too hard for him to make friends with any group. Being the quiet weirdo in class who doesn't know how to talk about any normal topic, and his lack of common sense hasn't helped him much either. The most he was able to achieve was Hana, who always looked at him as if she were angry whenever they spent time together, which now makes him feel that maybe they never really had a genuine connection to begin with and that it was just a matter of convenience for her from the start. All Tsuyoshi wants is to be able to live a normal, peaceful life, without anything or anyone bothering him. He's not asking for anything extraordinary like being the most popular in the class or anything like that, just to live in peace. And we see that he left school to get something to drink and relax, wondering if he'll ever be able to have a peaceful life like before he met the girls. But he feels that he won't, and that this is because he's such a strange person who inevitably attracts bad things, whether for himself or for those around him. At that moment, another girl appears behind him to greet him cheerfully. This girl is Haru, a friend he hasn't seen in a long time, and she asks if she can sit next to him, happy to have met up again after so long, showing a very cheerful and playful attitude, the complete opposite of the protagonist. The protagonist explains to us that she always helped him when he worked part-time at a restaurant. Unfortunately, they can hardly ever see each other because their classes are different, and over time, their relationship, although it hasn't ended, stopped being strong enough for them to consider themselves close friends. Then we see his memories of the past with Haru, where we discover that when they first met, she was much colder toward him than she is now, as she behaved very seriously since she was his superior, and would scold him every time he did something wrong. When he made a mistake, he assured her that he didn't need help to fix it, since they were just colleagues, and therefore, his duty was to cause her as few problems as possible. At the time, this took him a bit by surprise and almost drained him, as has happened so many other times we've seen, to the point of resetting his relationship with her. However, one day, While he was washing the dishes, Haru came up behind him to show him how to do it, demonstrating that beneath that stern look was a kind girl who just wanted to help him improve. It was at that moment that Tsuyoshi was able to feel at ease in her presence, because he saw that even though she had a cold attitude, she really did help him improve whenever he needed her, and it made him happy that she was there with him, telling her that she was the only one who explained things to him when he didn't understand something. Hearing this made her quite happy, and she asked Tsuyoshi if he wasn't the kind of guy who drove girls crazy, since he always seemed to know exactly what to say to charm them all, even managing to catch the attention of someone older like her. Jokes aside, Haru assured him that she did it because, to her, he was like a younger brother she needed to look after and guide so that he could become independent, which marked the beginning of a very lovely bond between the two of them that has lasted to this day, unlike the others we've seen so far. Back in the present, Haru gets his attention by asking if he's okay, since she noticed he seemed a bit distracted, or at least more than usual, and even she can tell that something isn't right. Then she apologizes for what she's about to say, but she heard some pretty bad rumors about him and his childhood friend, and wants to know what happened, because unlike others who take the first version they hear as the truth, she knows her friend is a really good guy and could never do something so bad just because. Tsuyoshi remembers when he made Hana cry and explains to Haru that they no longer have any relationship, showing her that he doesn't feel anything for the person who was once his best friend. Silence quickly falls until Haru points out that that's not true, looking hurt, because she knows how badly the protagonist must be feeling with all of this. This is because she had already heard the story they shared as childhood friends, and that's why she asks the protagonist if they weren't as close as she thought. Tsuyoshi is surprised by her words and doesn't know what to say. This makes him question whether he can really tell Haru everything, but then he decides to open up to her and tell her the truth about what happened. After everything is over, Haru is left trembling for a moment, until she then gives Tsuyoshi a light tap, scolding him for having broken such a valuable relationship over an accident like that, which, even though it was bad, wasn't so terrible as to cut all ties with Hana. Tsuyoshi explains to her that, since he didn't want to feel any more pain, he ended up erasing all the feelings he had for Hana. This greatly angers Haru, who scolds him, explaining that those kinds of feelings can't just be erased, and that he's only fooling himself, something that will eventually end up hurting him. She doesn't know Michiba or Mimi, but she does know about the relationship the protagonist had with Hana, so he needs to go and fix everything now that he has the time. However, Tsuyoshi insists that all of this is his fault, since he has no common sense and everything he does just makes things worse, because he doesn't understand how human relationships work. Haru explains to him that this isn't his fault or anyone else's, since all of this could be resolved simply by asking Hana and talking things through together until they work it out. After all, no matter how bad a conflict may be, best friends are there so you can talk things out and move forward, since they are the people you trust the most. He also says that it would be very sad to end such a valuable relationship, especially in such a terrible way as cutting off all the feelings they have for each other. Tsuyoshi starts to question everything he has done up until now. During those moments when he suffered the most, he thought he wanted to stop feeling pain, so it would be enough to just eliminate his feelings, and everything would go on as always. In the end, he wasn't doing it to take care of others or to learn about human relationships. He was simply protecting himself. The protagonist doesn't know what to do now, but Haru assures him that at the very least, he can understand how he feels, and then advises him that in situations like these, he should simply ignore the bad things, and move forward anyway. In the end, she helped him again in the same way as when they first met. He asks her if he could really do something like that, but Haru isn't even sure herself. And as Tsuyoshi thinks about it, he sees her bathed in sunlight, creating a beautiful image of his friend, who shines like the only light that has given Tsuyoshi hope. She notices the way he was looking at her and feels embarrassed in front of her friend, asking him to forget about it, claiming that Tsuyoshi has a special talent for charming women and demands that he buy her a juice the next time they meet. Jokes aside, he is left deep in thought after his conversation with Haru about what to do not only with Hana, but also about how he handles relationships in general. After all, he has only just begun to realize how wrong he has been until now. Haru, looking at his friend, smiles to herself thinking that things are already a little better, so she starts heading back to her classroom. Before leaving, Tsuyoshi thanks her for the conversation and then tells her about a cafe where he would like to invite her as a way of thanking her for the advice she just gave him, offering it as if it were a date, which leaves Aru speechless, confirming to her that he really is a heartbreaker. That is, until she turns around with a radiant smile and accepts the invitation, making Tsuyoshi's heart feel warm once again. As he says goodbye to her, he thinks that he doesn't want to do another reset, not with her nor with anyone he loves, but at the same time he understands that this feeling he has now is what used to cause him pain in his heart, so he still feels uncertain about whether or not to open up to the people who hurt him. This makes him wonder if maybe one day the kindness in himself or in others will disappear. And while this is happening, we see Hana sending a message to Tsuyoshi asking him to talk one more time, while she feels sad just thinking about everything that has happened so far. The next day, we see all the students entering through the school gate while cheerfully chatting with each other. Some are receiving compliments on their new haircuts, others are excitedly talking about the episode of the drama they watched the night before and how amazing it was. There are even rumors going around about a new girl in the special class. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi was walking alone, listening to all those conversations around him. When he looked at the people around him, he realized that everyone seemed happy. Everyone had someone to talk to, except for him. At that moment, a deep sense of loneliness ended up overwhelming him. He watched his classmates walk together and chat with each other as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The protagonist recognized their faces perfectly and knew their names, but he had never really managed to talk to any of them. As he walked on, he saw Aru. She also noticed him right away and came over to greet him cheerfully, wishing him good morning. Then she reminded him about the invitation to go to the cafe together. Aru mentioned that it would be best to wait until they received their new work schedules and check which days they would have off so they could go out. Tsuyoshi agreed while Aru smiled excitedly, thinking about how happy she was to finally be able to eat something sweet after such a long time. Seeing her smile, Tsuyoshi couldn't help but think that, for some reason, Aru had become someone special to him. He even wondered if it was because she always helped him so much at work. Then, mustering up some courage, he asked if he could have her contact number. He explained to her that he would text her as soon as he received the new schedules. Aru was a little surprised to realize that they didn't even have each other's numbers yet. Then she came closer, smiling, and asked him to bring his phone near hers so they could exchange contacts. Tsuyoshi turned on his phone screen, but the message Hana had sent him the day before was still unopened. Aru was surprised when she saw it and immediately realized that Tsuyoshi hadn't even replied to the message. She then told him that it was pretty cruel to ignore a girl's message without even reading it. Just at that moment, Aru saw Hana walking alone. That immediately struck her as odd because Hana was usually always surrounded by her friends. After exchanging contact information, Aru asked Tsuyoshi to go talk to Hana first. She even gave him a little push while telling him to stop overthinking it and just talk to Hana directly already. Tsuyoshi thanked her and said goodbye. As she watched him walk toward Hana, Aru let out a small sigh and thought that she was going to ask for extra desserts when they went to the cafe. As he approached Hana, Tsuyoshi remembered the conversation he had had with Aru the day before. She had told him that it really wasn't his fault, that the problem could have been solved by talking things through, and that it was too sad to end such a long friendship that way. After hearing Aru's words, Tsuyoshi felt that he could no longer keep ignoring everything that had happened. So he called Hana by her name. She stopped at the entrance and was surprised to see him approaching. Kindly, Tsuyoshi asked if she could spare him a little time to talk. The two of them moved away to a quieter place. Tsuyoshi wanted to ask her about the message he had sent, but Hana remained silent, unable even to look him in the eye. Noticing the awkward atmosphere, Tsuyoshi asked her why she was walking alone and what had happened to her usual friends. Hana tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come out. Suddenly, Hana looked away and ended up apologizing to him, wondering why it was so hard for her to be honest, even knowing how clumsy he was. Seeing her like that, Tsuyoshi wanted to say something, but he stayed silent. Once again, he started blaming himself for everything. He thought that Hana was suffering because of him. But no, this time it was different. He thought it would be easier to go back to blaming himself, but doing that wouldn't solve anything. That way, they would never be able to move forward. That problem belonged to both of them, and blaming only himself was no longer the right answer. His thoughts began to change. He knew he had to talk to the other person. He had to try to understand her feelings as well. So, Tsuyoshi asked her directly what had happened to her. Hana replied that it was nothing serious and explained that the day before she had argued with one of her friends, but suddenly her tsundere friend appeared by her side, assuring her that she hadn't argued with her because she had spoken badly about him and asking her not to get any strange ideas. Then, Tsuyoshi asked her if she thought she could get along with her friend again. Hana remained silent for a few seconds before answering yes. She said that everything would probably be resolved when they talked later, because after all, fights were something normal between friends. Upon hearing that, Tsuyoshi felt a bit relieved, but Hana looked at him with a sad expression and told him that she was an unpleasant woman and that she would completely understand if he hated her. At this, Tsuyoshi remained silent. It wasn't that he had started to hate her. What happened at that moment was different. The affection he felt for her had simply disappeared. The memories were still there, but all the emotional warmth that accompanied them had completely faded away. Hana told him it was okay and apologized again, insisting that it was all her fault. Then, Tsuyoshi finally spoke and told her that none of it was her fault. He confessed to her that he was the one responsible because he was the one who reset everything. She let out a small sad laugh and told him that he was still clumsy, but just as kind as always. Then she confessed something much more painful, mentioning that she now felt there was a huge wall between them. She told him he seemed like a completely different person, just like when they met again in high school. Hana felt as if she were talking to a complete stranger, and that distance between them scared her. Tsuyoshi was supposed to have erased all his feelings, but for some reason, his chest ached when he heard those words. Then, Hana repeated what he had said about resetting his emotions, and although it sounded strange, she admitted that she could understand it perfectly, because it wasn't the first time it had happened. And then the story returns to the past. We go back to the moment when Hana and Tsuyoshi met again. Tsuyoshi was sitting in a room, looking at her without emotion, as he asked who she was. Hana was completely shocked and asked him if he was joking. Hana also explained that she had been asked to take care of him, but Tsuyoshi, with total coldness, replied that he didn't know her. Then, Hana asked him if he didn't remember the promise they had made to each other when they were children. Tsuyoshi responded in exactly the same way and said he didn't remember any promise either. Hana was shocked when she realized he was telling the truth. Finally, she took a deep breath and replied that she understood. As he remembered all of that, Tsuyoshi realized something painful. Hana had stayed by his side all that time, and yet, he had erased all the feelings they had built together in just an instant. Then she slapped her cheeks hard and, with tears in her eyes, told him that she would also erase everything related to him. If he could do it, then she could forget everything too, the memories, the feelings, even the love she felt for him. She would erase every one of those emotions until she was completely empty. But as she spoke those harsh words, Hana couldn't stop crying. And seeing her like that, Tsuyoshi thought it was impossible for a normal person to do something like that. Hana pulled him out of his thoughts by calling his name, then slowly reached out her hand to him and asked if they could be friends again and start over from scratch. Tsuyoshi lowered his gaze in surprise. He tried to find the right words again and again, until he finally took her hand and told her that he also wanted to be her friend again. She let out a small, relieved laugh and thanked him. At that moment, she decided to herself that she would do everything possible so that Tsuyoshi could live a normal youth. She didn't care how many times he had to start over. She wasn't planning to give up and would start from that very moment, even if it meant rebuilding their relationship from scratch over and over again. After wiping away her tears, Hana smiled with great energy and told him that this time they would make many more friends, and that they would all play together. She put all her feelings, her determination, and all the affection she felt for him into that promise. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi assured her that he was willing to change. That very moment marked a turning point, as for the first time he made the firm decision to truly face his own difficulties and confront another person.